Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Lisa Rodacher. I'm the Assistant Dean for Admissions here at Washington and Lee University School of Law, and it's right at 12 o'clock. I know we'll have some other people joining in, but let's get to it and recognize everyone's time. We really appreciate you joining for this important conversation. So what we're going to be talking about today is employment opportunities at WNL Law and for WNL Law students and alumni, and I'm really excited to be joined today by some experts in our Office of Career Strategy, including current students who are going to share with you about their vantage point, their experiences thus far. And what we're really hoping to do is have a helpful conversation for you as you consider various law school options. So we had a few questions that were sent in as part of the registration process. We'll definitely try to incorporate those as we go forward. But we also have the Q&A and the chat on. So if you have additional questions that come up, please feel free to utilize that. I will be monitoring both while Ms. Coleman Jackson, who's going to introduce herself and the Office of Career Strategy shortly, is going to be leading our conversation between herself and our current students who are here. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Frida Coleman Jackson to speak a little bit further about her background and experiences, as well as that of her team there in the office. So please take it away.
Thank you so much, Dean Rodacher. Good afternoon, everyone. So glad to have you on the call today, and I'm excited about the prospects of you joining WNL's Law School. Again, I'm the Associate Director of Career Strategy here at the office. I've been here at WNL since May of 2020 and have had a wonderful experience working with our incredible team in OCS as well as in admissions and across the law school. Office of Career Strategy is a mouthful, so we are known as OCS. We meet with our students from orientation and beyond and one-on-one. And then we also have our Dean of Career Strategy, Cliff Jarrett, our Associate Director of Professional Development, Andrea Hilton, and we have 2 additional full-time staff members that work with us in the employment, recruiting, and in space. And then one thing that I think that just makes our office so special is our 3 Rattrip Fellows that you have sitting before you that are going to introduce themselves here in just a few moments. But again, Dean Rodacher just dropped the links to our office as well as our staff, and you can read a little bit more about us. Very quickly, I'll share that I primarily do the public interest, government, and military career advising in our office, but again, we all have expertise across the board. So enough about me, enough about the office. Let's go ahead and meet our awesome Rattrip Fellows, which again, I think is our secret weapon here at WNL. But if we could just have each of the Rattrip Fellows introduce themselves and tell a little bit about where they went in terms of their school involvement, where you're from, where you went undergrad, and what your interests are professionally, and where you spent your summer. So just kind of give us that big overview.
Sure. So I'll start off. My name is Jasmine Cooper. I'm a 3L here at WNL. And, in school, I'm involved in the Black Law Students Association and also our Journal for Civil Rights and Social Justice. I'm from Bowie, Maryland, which is like 25-30 minutes outside of DC. And I went to Monmouth University in New Jersey. And I'm interested professionally in labor and employment law. That's what I'm going to do after graduation. But my 1L summer, I spent as a judicial intern in the Eastern District of Virginia with Judge Colin Bell. And then my 2L summer, I was a summer associate at a firm in DC.
My name is Hannah Wilk. I'm a 3L here at WNL. I am, like Jasmine, also involved in the Journal of Civil Rights and Social Justice, and I'm also active in the First Generation Student Union and WILSO, which is our Women Law Students organization. Originally, I am from outside of Cleveland, Ohio. I went to Roanoke College for undergrad. Professionally, I'm interested in criminal law, and my 1L summer, I was with the U.S. Marshal Service Office of General Counsel in DC, and my 2L summer, I was with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of Ohio.
And I'm Aiden O'Connor. I'm a 3L at the law school as well. I'm involved in law review and the Business Law Association as well. I went to UVA undergrad and am born and raised in Virginia in Leesburg, so about 45 minutes outside of DC. I spent my first summer at a firm called Bradley in Birmingham, Alabama, kind of doing a little bit of everything, trying to see what I like and also see what I didn't like. And then my second summer I spent in Charlotte, North Carolina with a firm called McGuire Woods, primarily focusing on healthcare corporate law. And I will be returning there after graduation with a focus in healthcare.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I think it's so interesting to hear just among these 3 students who work in our career services office, the diversity of experiences they've had for their summers, their different student organizational involvement, as well as what their plans are post-grad. So we're saying this term Rattrip Fellow, right? What does that all really mean? And so can a couple just you speak to again, what being a Rattrip Fellow is, what is that role, how you support your peers and classmates here at the law school, and then what do you feel like are the benefits, and maybe how you even utilize a Rattrip Fellow when you were in 1L and 2L year. Let's maybe start with Hannah.
Okay, so kind of as Ratchford Fellows, one of our primary jobs is to help other students find jobs, and we do that with reviewing resumes and cover letters, helping people with interview prep, and kind of pointing them in the right direction. If we don't have a connection to the area they want to work in, or the location, just knowing how to find someone who can help them connect in those areas, getting students connected with alumni, obviously helping with school events like this panel, or when we have other employers on campus, is kind of like the main role of the Ratchford Fellows. And I think one of the big benefits of the Ratchford Fellow program is just having a student arm of OCS for other students to go to and have more of a peer relationship versus talking to someone who's already finished law school and has been working for a while. I think it's really nice to have someone who's kind of going through the job process kind of alongside you when you have questions, and who's, you know, in law school right now. I think that's really helpful.
Thanks, Hannah. That was a great description. Jasmine, can you maybe talk a little bit about how you guys do office hours and maybe our social media efforts and things like that?
Yeah, so we all have office hours, usually like 3 to 4 hours a week, and we try to spread it out so that like we each are taking care of a day. And students can just come like on a case by case basis, like if they need to see us, if it's something quick, like, can you look at this email that I want to send to an employer, or if it's more of like an in-depth like strategy, like what firm should I apply to type thing. So we have office hours every week that we do. And then social media wise, we just try to use social media to get information out, like if there's jobs that are coming up, if there's different programs that are coming up, different like things that are going on in law school that will be beneficial to their job search. We try to push that out through social media, so everyone has all the information they need.
Thank you. And I'm going to age myself a little bit today, but I recently just asked Jasmine to give me an Instagram tutorial so I can try and level up like the Ratchford Fellows. So we appreciate having them so much in the office. Aiden, I also, as we're kind of on this initial question here, can you talk a little bit about the fact that we're looking at some markets in the Southeast and what that process maybe was like a little bit, and then perhaps how you engage with the Ratchford Fellow as a 1L and 2L a little bit?
Yeah, so I really wanted to target the Southeast, and WNL is a great place to be able to do that. Although we're not limited to the Southeast as a school, we have people that go everywhere every year and land wherever they want. Us being located in the Southeast there's a great network of WNL alums. And so as I was going through the process of looking for jobs, a lot of it was sending out kind of cold emails to WNL alumni. They're a very receptive group, which is great. Most of them got back to me and were willing to talk to me pretty much within the same day. I think that this is where a lot of the Ratchford Fellow help came in as well, because it can be a little bit intimidating reaching out to these people when you're a 1L and maybe don't have grades yet, but just having somebody kind of look over those emails was helpful. So I was able to blast a bunch of those out there, talk to a ton of different people at a bunch of different firms all throughout the Southeast, from North Carolina, Atlanta, Alabama, obviously as well, and Virginia. And then fortunately, the OCS office has on-campus interviews, OCIs, and a few of the firms I was interested in and that I had connected with came to our campus to do interview programs. I went through that process and was lucky enough to land in Birmingham. And then for my second summer, I wanted to explore another city and ultimately ended up with Charlotte. But throughout that time, I think the strength of both the Office of Career Services, the Radford Fellows, and the network of WNL people everywhere helped me land exactly where I needed to be for those summers.
No, that's great to hear, Aiden, and I appreciate you breaking down. We throw out a lot of terminology, a lot of acronyms in the law school world, so thanks for breaking down what OCI stands for. And it's nice, kind of in this era right now, some of that is actually in person, but some of those employers will conduct those interviews virtually as well. So there's a lot of flexibility that's happening right now in terms of trying to make sure employers are getting in front of our students and vice versa. Picking up on what Aiden shared, Hannah and Jasmine, can you talk a little bit more about some of the resources that you tapped into, that you utilize to help you in terms of navigating your different job searches?
Yeah, so my 1L summer, like I mentioned previously, I was with the U.S. Marshals Service Office of General Counsel, and we have had WNL students in that position 1L summer, say consistently for probably the past 4 years. So before my interview, I was able to talk to the 2L at the time who had done that, her 1L summer, kind of hear from her about what she did. And then I was able to hear about kind of her interview experience specifically. So I had a little bit of an idea of what to expect. And then more recently I'm going to be clerking after graduation. So the judge that I'm going to be working with is actually an alum of the law school. So I found the job posting through SCORE, which is OCS's kind of like job posting platform where we'll put job postings, internship postings, event postings, all of that stuff. And then I was also able to use faculty's members to write my letter of recommendation. And a lot of the faculty that wrote my letters also knew this judge through his capacity as an alum. So it kind of like worked out really well in that sense, but always like kind of constantly using OCS. Even as a rep for now, I'll still like send my resume to Ms. Coleman Jackson and be like, can you just give it a once over? So there's really just a lot of different ways to utilize the WNL network as a whole for kind of whatever you were looking for at the time.
Yeah, I would say something very similar. Like I utilize a lot of like current students. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do for my 1L summer. Like I thought I was interested in doing like a judicial internship, but I was talking to a current student about it and he connected me with like a recent alum who was currently clerking for a judge. And then that's how I got that job, by like just talking with her and applying. But I also use OCS. I use the Radford Fellows all the time for like my resume, my cover letter. If I'm just freaking out about like the job process, like the OCS has always been there to like calm people down and get you through the process. And then faculty as well, like they'll write you letter of recommendations. You can talk to any faculty member about like what you want to do, or if you're confused about what you want to do, they can like walk you through it and like give you suggestions of other alums to talk to. So I really utilize like everyone in this building to figure out what I wanted to do.
No, that's wonderful to hear. And just to be reminded of y'all's different experiences. I have to say, as a person working in the office, seeing you from, 1L first semester to now working in the office, getting a little sentimental. It's just so awesome to really see you guys paying it forward, and really how great that you've been able to tap into the faculty, the alum, to your fellow students to really kind of all support you in your efforts. So Jasmine, kind of piggybacking off of what you shared, saying that 1L summer, you weren't quite sure what you wanted to do. And I know for many of the students on the call today, like we're making the effort, we're taking the LSAT, we're applying to law school, but we may have an idea of what we want to do, maybe not. So when you go back, 2.5 years ago, and you were thinking about law school, did you know exactly what you wanted to do after graduation? And are you still planning to do that thing, or kind of tell me how you arrived to 3L, Jasmine?
Yeah, so I did like a complete 180. So I came into law school wanting to do public defense. And then I kind of pivoted more to the private sector, but I still do want to do public defense at like some point in my career. But I think a really important conversation I had with like one of the Ratchford fellows my 1L year was that law school is so portable and like you're not pigeonholed into one thing. So you can come in thinking you want to do one thing, end up doing something else for your first job and then pivot. So like just getting your JD, it gives you the opportunity to do what like a wide variety of different like industries and careers. So like she really like helped me realize that, you know, your first job out of law school, like while it is important, you don't have to stay at that job for the rest of your life. You can pivot, you can change. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I will do more private sector for a few years and then I might, you know, pivot to public defense. So that's kind of my trajectory right now.
No, I think that's great to remember that your first destination doesn't have to be your final destination and that you do have a lot of flexibility. And I'll just say as well as, oftentimes here in the career strategy office, we do work with alumni or folks still early in their career that perhaps want to make a pivot. I'll just share this real quickly. We had a recent alum 2 years out who was doing a judicial clerkship post-grad in Delaware who wanted to move into government service working for the DOJ. Our office worked with her to develop her application. And so now she'll be working for the Department of Justice, building off those 2 years of experience that she had as a clerkship, but we still are engaging, still helping advise her navigate to that next step, just having that really great start. Hannah, can you talk a little bit about kind of what your focus was and how you've kind of worked through that the last couple of years?
Yeah, definitely. So coming into law school, I knew I really wanted to do criminal prosecution. I was a criminal justice major in college, so that was kind of always my focus. And then 1L summer, I really just wanted to be in DC. So that's kind of how I found myself with the Marshal Service. So that was nice to kind of get my foot in the door with the DOJ internship and have that type of credential on my resume. But then kind of like end of 1L going into 2L, that's when I started to think more seriously about applying for a clerkship after graduation. And one of the main draws for me is just the research and writing skills that you get during a clerkship. So I still eventually want to move into the criminal prosecution sphere, but I'm going to be clerking in a state court for just a year after graduation, and I'm planning to apply for a second clerkship at the federal level. And like Jasmine said, like JDs are very portable and clerkships really help build on skills that you're going to use no matter what field you end up in after law school.
Thanks, Hannah. And then Aiden, you kind of talked a little bit about your approach already, but can you just share, like, did you really kind of see it coming almost full circle at this moment? Like, did 1L Aiden see this?
No, not at all. I think when I got to law school, I didn't know really anything. I didn't know what litigation or like transactional law really even were. And then your first semester, you hear that a lot, or you hear a lot of people being like, well, are you focused? Do you want to do litigation or do you want to do like corporate and business work? And that really means nothing until you get out there and experience what those fields actually mean, and that there's such a wide variety and diversity of practices that you can have within those two fields. So for me, I wanted to work at a law firm, and one of the reasons that I did is working at a full service law firm exposed me to every sort of field imaginable. It got me into healthcare transactions, real estate transactions, regular corporate transactions, and commercial litigation, financial services litigation, every sort of construction. So you get exposed to a lot of different practice groups. And then you can figure out, I like this, and I really didn't like this other thing, and start narrowing down what your field is going to be. So I think it's comforting knowing that you don't need to know what you're interested in, or even coming to law school, you don't even need to know what fields are available to you. You will find your way as you get in. And it's as much a process of elimination as it is anything else. And you'll find yourself in the right career path for you. For me, healthcare is where I'm focusing now. I have some family members that are involved in healthcare, so it felt like a natural fit over the summer. But I also have a professor here who spent 20 years doing civil litigation and then halfway through his career switched and has been doing business immigration for his clients for the last 20 years before he retired. So he had essentially two entirely different careers. So I think if that tells you anything, it's that, kind of to touch on what Jasmine said, the world really is your oyster, and you don't have to have a sense when you get here.
I think that's a really good reminder. I think as you're preparing to go to law school, particularly that first year, you're getting a lot of information, a lot of advice, good advice, right? Everyone means well, but sometimes it's hard to know exactly how things are going to work out. So I love the fact that each of you just were open-minded, had a focus, but were willing to reach out to your professors, to your classmates, to OCS to really kind of explore what that would look like. And then definitely to what Aiden was saying, sometimes finding out what you don't like is just as helpful or important as finding out what you do. So I think that's something to definitely remember as you're embarking on this endeavor. So I'm also excited for each of you to share about some of your classes. You've already spoken to the role that faculty has had, but just some of your co-curricular activities, externships, different things that you're involved in that you feel like have really been beneficial to you in terms of getting you where you are, getting that experience, getting that exposure, and finding out, kind of where you excel. Maybe Hannah, we can start with you.
Yeah, definitely. So I think definitely 1L classes, legal research and legal writing are going to be skills that you will just continue to build on for the rest of law school and your career beyond. And those are definitely skills that help you a lot in the summer. So those classes were definitely super beneficial to me. There are some classes that aren't necessarily beneficial to what I want to do, like area-wise for criminal law after graduation, but that I've taken multiple classes with the same professor. So in that sense, being able to build a relationship with those professors has been really, really helpful for me. And then I guess outside of class, I am in a judicial externship this year. So once a week, I go and I extern with a judge, and I'll be doing that through the end of the school year. But that's a chance just to kind of see like how lawyers do the day-to-day nuts and bolts of being in the courtroom, kind of getting to see how judges go through their decision-making process. So that's been really cool as well. And that's definitely going to be helpful, obviously, for clerking next year. But I think just in a general sense, kind of getting to see how litigation actually works versus just learning about it in the classroom is super helpful.
It is important that theory, kind of all that case law, you have to actually like see it in practice, in actuality. So I think that is the important part where it kind of makes it all really come to life and be exciting. Jasmine, earlier in your introduction, you talked about your involvement in BALSA. And so maybe if you could share with what some of those co-curricular activities have been, along with your externship and other things that you're involved in.
Yeah, so with BALSA, I was able to compete in mock trial my 1L year, so that was really beneficial. I did mock trial in undergrad, but like doing it on the law school level was a lot different and a lot more challenging. So I learned a lot from that 1L year, and then 2L year I did moot court with BALSA, and again, writing like a brief that is going before the Supreme Court was really enlightening. I actually learned a lot more about appellate work and like might consider it down the road. So just those like practical like experiences to work on like my skills have been really beneficial. And then also like Hannah, I do a judicial externship once a week. And it's been good to just compare like state court to federal court, because that's what I did my 1L summer. And then I really like a lot of our practicums. I think those are great chances to learn how to do litigation without like, it's very low stakes, like it's fake, nobody's gonna go to jail or lose money, but you get to learn like all the steps that you need to be a good litigator in some of those practicums.
Nice to hear. And so Aiden, once you get the chance to start picking classes, right, after that 1L year, what did you find yourself being really gravitating toward?
So I think I gravitated more towards transactional classes, because I kind of, after my 1L summer, knew that that was where I wanted to focus my career. And kind of what Jasmine was saying is I think that the practicums here are really beneficial. I think there's a balanced curriculum. You have doctrinal classes, which are really the theory behind law. It's reading a lot of cases and really is more about teaching you how to think like a lawyer. But then we have a certain requirement for practical credits at WNL also, where most of the time it's adjunct professors that are practicing the law that they're teaching on a daily basis, and come in and give you examples from their work that you get to work on. And I found those to be the most helpful, because it's a transferable skill that you can take with you to whatever you're doing over the summer. And these practicums are litigation and transactional focused. So if you really want to become an exceptional legal writer, there is an advanced legal writing practicum. If you want to start working on some deal documents, there's a real estate practicum that you can dive into. And those are great practical experience that you can take with you in whichever field you're going into, whether it's judicial clerkship, government interest, public interest, or a corporate sort of transactional field.
No, that's great to hear. And I'm always so impressed when I get a chance to hear about the different opportunities students are being exposed to, the faculty, perhaps some of the adjuncts that are, in the courtroom, like during the day, but then make the trip to WNL to facilitate a class. So it's just really impressive, the breadth and depth of experience that you guys are being exposed to. So thinking about some of these opportunities, particularly kind of in the public interest space, because that is where a lot of students do spend their 1L summer. And so I have to say that having gone to law school to focus in on public interest and having that support made a big difference. And so I'm so happy to work at a law school that has also made a really important commitment to supporting students that might be going into unpaid government or public interest summer internships. And so having explored that for your 1L summer, particularly Hannah and also Jasmine, can you talk about how you've tapped into some of these funding resources that WNL provides and how that has supported your professional experiences and career trajectory?
Yeah, so WNL's biggest funding for public interest, the NATCN Fund, which is Pathway to Public Sector, I think it's called now. It's being revamped a little bit name-wise, but that's where most people will get their funding 1L summer. So that's kind of any unpaid government public interest job. And then we have the Shepherd program, which is more like federal work study. There's some environmental law scholarships. The Women's Law Student Organization has a scholarship as well. So there's some different options for funding depending on what you want to do. But I was one of the lucky few that had an unpaid internship, both 1L and 2L summer. So I did utilize the NATCN Fund, both 1L and 2L summer. So 1L summer, it covered my housing expenses and my metro transportation in DC. And then 2L summer, I just lived at home with my parents, but the NATCN Fund was able to cover my gas mileage, like mileage money, and parking for over the summer as well. So that was really, really helpful, because it gives you an opportunity to pursue employment in a city that you might not otherwise be able to if you don't have a family member or a friend who's like willing to let you live there for free. It really gives you a chance to explore a city that you want to be in, even if you don't necessarily have housing there already.
Yeah, I also use NATCN. I was in Richmond, so I don't know anyone in Richmond. So the NATCN Fund was really helpful in getting me housing, and then also like gas mileage, I think, and parking. So that was very beneficial because Richmond is a little expensive, honestly. Like if I was just paying out of pocket. So it was great to be able to experience the city and like not have to give up that opportunity because I couldn't afford it.
And so again, I'm so glad that both of you were able to take advantage of that program. And then obviously Dean Rodacker just shared information about our programming that helps support that. There's some other things that go into that support in terms of some post-grad assistance and also some assistance when students are traveling to do interviews in the public interest space. So again, like I said, having thought back to my law school days and now working here at the law school, it really is something that I appreciate seeing how much we're able to support our students that want to do work in this space. So now I do want to just kind of pause really quick to see with Dean Rodacker. Thank you so much to our panelists. We'll be coming back to you here in just a second to see if we've had any questions come through the chat or maybe some of the questions that were previously submitted. Dean Rodacker?
Absolutely. We did have a few questions submitted in both ways, so thank you. Please keep your questions coming if you have additional ones. But just to make sure that we've covered this, we have students who are kind of at two different ends of the geographic spectrum on this conversation. Some who are really certain that they want to work in Virginia and so want to be sure that if they come to WNL Law, that Virginia opportunities, as we talk about having a broad range of geographic options, right, coming out of WNL Law, that Virginia opportunities are realistic for them. And then also the students who might be in Colorado or New York are thinking about those as potential markets or other places further afield, and, you know, have some questions about coming to a smaller school in a small town in Southwestern Virginia, and how does that translate? And clearly you all have your experiences individually, but maybe we can talk first about, you know, the Virginia question. Are there still, you know, robust opportunities in Virginia while we do have a majority of students who are coming from outside of Virginia and who are working outside of Virginia after graduation? And maybe Ms. Frida Coleman Jackson, you'd like to start us off.
Sure, definitely. I think that's one of the things that's so wonderful and amazing about WNL is that if you want to stay right here in Virginia, like even though Aiden's looking to perhaps go southeast, he said he was born and bred in Virginia. So we definitely have those students that attend here, and they very much will work in all of the major markets that we have. So not just a Richmond. I remember we actually, this is a interesting example. We had the Army Corps of Engineers come to do some OCI on campus. Well, one of their major offices is in Winchester, Virginia. So again, you have a federal government agency that is going to allow folks to stay in the state and work. We definitely have people in Richmond and Northern Virginia. One of our other big markets is Charlottesville, Harrisonburg, Roanoke. Just this past Monday, we actually hosted a Roanoke chapter of the American Inns of Courts. So really kind of a judiciary, kind of legal professional body that comes in and does professional development. And so we open up an invitation for students who want to stay in the Southwest Virginia area, particularly Roanoke, Blacksburg area, to come and have a student membership in this professional inn of courts and be able to interact with judges and local members of the bar throughout their time here at the law school. So I think that's definitely some of those unique opportunities. And our Dean of Career Services, Career Strategy, Cliff Jarrett, is actually the law school liaison for that end of court. And then the other thing too, and maybe Jasmine can talk a little bit about this, but with the Balsa moot court and mock trial, oftentimes we have WNL Law alums who are in the surrounding area in Virginia come back and do that training for us. So we definitely have a great alumni base here that you can tap into as well.
I didn't know if any of the students wanted to chime in on that.
Yeah, just on Ms. Coleman Jackson's thing for moot court, we do have alumni who are in the Richmond and Charlottesville area who they'll come down to coach us. We'll do it on Zoom. So there are like a lot of opportunities within Virginia, and I think a lot of our alums are still in Virginia that you can connect with and talk to.
Thank you. And then this is the other end of the spectrum, right? The person who's on the call from the West Coast. I'm originally from Seattle, so always thinking of my Pacific Northwestern folks, or who are thinking about markets further afield, right? Not in Virginia. We certainly have some examples on this call of students who are not working in Virginia, but you know, I think there's always some concern. Have we selected the only 3 students or the only couple of students who have those opportunities? Are there no students out there other than these individuals? And again, I'll just share kind of from a class profile standpoint. Historically, this has been true at WNL. The majority of our students are actually not from Virginia. We typically only enroll about 20 to 25% of our students from Virginia. And while Virginia is our number 1 in terms of which bar students are taking, it's only about 25 to maybe 30% of a given class that's taking the Virginia bar. So the majority of students are from other places, are planning to work in other places. I didn't know if you all had any other stories or kind of words of encouragement for those students who are thinking this would be a great location for law school, but might want to work further afield.
Yeah, I think WNL does a really great job of helping get at students kind of anywhere in the country that people want to be. I mean, we have a lot of people who end up in DC because we're obviously pretty close to DC, but New York's another big market. A lot of people going down to Texas, Charlotte, some in Alabama. And I really think you would be hard pressed to find a city you want to be in that doesn't have some connection to a WNL alum. I think that's one of the great things about this school is that you can pretty much go wherever you want afterwards. And kind of something that Jasmine talked about earlier, like your first job isn't going to be your forever job. And so maybe you don't get to your dream location for your first job right after graduation, but it's very easy to mobilize yourself to get pretty much wherever you want, I think.
I agree with that. Of my, I would say, closest 10 or so friends at this school, only one of them is staying in Virginia. And it's not because others didn't have opportunities here, but most of them are from other places, other states, and are going back to their home states. So Colorado, California, Texas, New York, Michigan, Ohio, all over the place. And I think that that's another one of the strengths with our alumni network, and that because we accept people from all over and have people go back to where they're from afterwards, it creates a great network across the United States that really you can find somebody in any major city or market that you're looking at who went to WNL. And as I kind of touched on earlier, they're a very receptive group. So if you take the initiative, reach out, establish a conversation, then you can find yourself wherever you want or need to be.
And then I will just throw in a few kind of anecdotes. Surprisingly, we have a great relationship in the public interest space for students that want to go and work for the Colorado State Public Defender's Office. It always amazes me that we have a really strong pipeline of folks that are now in senior level positions within the Colorado PD's office, just because of that conduit of WNL law folks. It just takes one or two, and then that network just starts building and building. And then another really awesome program that we have that's available to third year students is the Working in Law Full Time during your fall semester. So as our Ratchet Fellows mentioned, some of the externships and they're traveling and going to judges' chambers, we actually have one student that comes to mind. She knew that she would like to work in the Michigan area, kind of in the Midwest, post-grad. So she's actually spending her entire fall semester working with an employer in the Detroit area. So again, if you kind of have a place where you want to be and you really want to get to know that market sooner rather than later, those are some opportunities that you can explore as well, which I think are just really great ways to open the door and build the network right in the city that you want to be in.
Thanks so much to you all. This next question was sent through the chat to me directly. Clearly have some students who are eager to get started with their job search, right? Which makes sense. We're going to a professional institution. You want to be prepared for the professional opportunities. The question is, are there any things that students can be doing before they get to law school to prepare them for their job search? Are there any resources that they should be taking advantage of? Any things they should be doing over the summer? I will share that for incoming students at WNL Law, we send, on behalf of the Office of Career Strategy, a welcome message over the summer that includes some very short suggestions of things that you can tune into, podcasts and that sort of thing, joining our LinkedIn group, that sort of thing is included. So nothing that's terribly arduous or time consuming, but for those who are really eager, right, we wanted to provide those, as well as just an introduction to some key players that will be helpful as students move forward in their process. But Ms. Coleman-Jackson, I don't know if you had anything else to share or anything students that you all did or wish you had done, or maybe your advice is just to really take your summer and have it be a break before you come to law school, whatever that may be. But I'll start with you, Ms. Coleman-Jackson.
Thanks so much. I'll jump in, and then I definitely would love to hear from our Ratchet Fellows. I think the biggest thing that I will say is that just focus on building relationships, cultivating relationships. I think at the end of the day, that's the most important piece for your career, for your time in law school, and probably for your time right now in undergrad. You know, making sure that you're, checking in with that professor, letting them know that, hey, you really motivated and encouraged me to get that senior thesis capstone project together. Or thank you for writing that letter of recommendation to help me get into law school. I just got accepted. So I think focusing on and building those relationships and taking the time to check in So it doesn't always feel like there's an ask or like, what can you get out of it? Just genuinely try and cultivate and develop those relationships. So when you do need to touch back out to that person, you can share this great update and say, hey, I got into law school. I've been doing my first semester. I've always been interested in this. And then that way you can build and tap into that person's network, and it will seem like a very genuine connection. And that's what we tell our students to do now is when you meet that alum, send them an email at the end of the year and just say, it was really great meeting you. I hope you're doing well. Looking forward to chatting with you in the future. Just those simple things like that. Nothing big that you have to do, not a book that you have to read, but just building those genuine connections and relationships will just lend you so well in law school and throughout your career. That's my biggest takeaway.
I can start us off. I completely agree with that. I think there's nothing that you can or should do that's worth stressing about over the summer before you get to law school. I think, if there's somebody a connection you have, sit down and get some coffee or with that person and talk about their legal career, how they wound up, where they did. And then also, if you really feel motivated, maybe do a little bit of homework, just like look at firms or opportunities that are in a market that you're potentially interested in, just to get a sense of that. But there really isn't anything comprehensive you can do until you get to law school. Grades do matter. 1L first semester is difficult. So if I could give you the best advice, it would be enjoy your summer, relax, take care of your mentals, get your head on right, and then come into law school ready to work hard and get going. That will serve you way better in the long run than stressing about what job you might get before that time. So take the summer to relax and enjoy it.
Yeah, I would definitely echo everything that Aiden and Ms. Coleman-Jackson said. And just kind of adding on to that, everybody is coming into law school having never done law school before. Nobody knows what's going on. And it really is the best thing to do to come into law school with like a clear head, feeling refreshed. You don't want to feel burnt out before you even get here. Like everybody's starting on the same foot that first day, 1L. So I definitely would recommend relaxing over that summer and really not thinking about the job stuff at all.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Thank you all very much. And that validates things that we share here in the admissions office. So thanks for making sure that we're on the right page with that. I will also put out a final call for anyone to put in questions to the Q&A or the chat. I have a few more that I want to make sure we ask our panelists, but if you have last burning questions, please go ahead and put them in at this time. A question was sent to me about law firm opportunities. Lexington itself, of course, is a small town. It's not going to be probably a destination after graduation for those who are looking at big law jobs. So do you all feel as if you had the opportunities coming out of WNL, should you have wanted to pursue law school law firm jobs? And then in terms of what that search process looks like, is there anything else that you wanted to share kind of just in terms of setting expectations?
I can start.
Okay.
I think if you want big law or like law firms, that's 100% an option. I don't know the statistics off my top of my head, but I think a lot of us do have that opportunity if we want to do it. As far as the job search, I found it very helpful that we have a lot of alum at a lot of these big firms. Like every firm that I looked at that I was considering applying to, there was at least one WNL alum that I could reach out to and talk to and learn about the firm and have that connection. So I think if that's your goal, that is very like attainable here at WNL.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that I have friends or know people that are working at law firms of all shapes and sizes, from the AmLaw top 5 to the AmLaw top 100 to 200. Basically, whatever sort of firm you're looking for, you can find a job in there, whether it's a full service firm or a boutique firm. And one of the great parts about the Office of Career Services and WNL, and I mentioned them earlier, is we do have on-campus interviews. And those are from firms of all shapes and sizes. Again, there's some smaller Southeast firms, a few from like Birmingham that will come up, or Charleston, West Virginia, that will come to our campus, want WNL students. And it's not just for those offices. So a lot of times those firms will send up people to interview people for their Birmingham, their Charlotte, their DC, and their New York or Dallas offices. So you can really end up wherever you want. And it's not just the kind of mid-sized or smaller firms that come here. There's fairly large ones of attorneys of over 1,200, or with attorneys, more than 1,200 attorneys that are coming here as well. So really, any sort of firm opportunity you want, you can find here.
Go ahead.
And
Ms.
I was just gonna add, and Dean Rodacker, perhaps you can drop this in the chat, but we have some really great stats on the website about our class of 2022 and where they've ended in terms of law firms. About 60% are at law firms, and then close to about 40% of those students are at big law. And so we're talking like DC markets, we're talking New York markets as well, Charlotte. As I mentioned before, when you look at our staff bios, our Dean of Career Strategy, Cliff Jarrett, spent many years in practice in the Charlotte market. And then we also have some resources here at the law school that he has made sure that we have access to. I'll just throw it out there. It won't mean anything to you right now, but it's something called Leopard Solutions. And I'm telling y'all, that is a secret weapon to do a search. So let's just say I'll use my undergrad. I went to Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida. If I wanted to look at all the Florida A&M undergrad graduates who were currently practicing doing environmental law in the state of Virginia, I could run that search in this database and poof, it would pop up. And so that is a resource that we make sure that we have available to students. So you can kind of start starting that strategy, and then we can be there to help round that out, to help you make those contacts, to help you initiate those. But it's a combination of all the things that our students have said, between our alumni that are at different stages in their career, from the new associate to the partner, to folks that are working in-house counsel. So WNL, I always say, is the small school that has such a big reach. And so again, those are one of the things that I feel so lucky and privileged to work at a school that I know I can reach out and tap into the alumni.
Thank you for that. And I have added into the chat our 2022 ABA employment summary. That's the most recent employment summary that's out, so that you can see how many students had firm jobs, what size those firms were, all of that good information. We also sent out a recording of this webinar afterwards to registrants and attendees. And in that message, I will also include a link to a handout that I think is helpful in terms of where specifically a selected listing of specific summer opportunities that students have taken advantage of, both in terms of government public interest as well as specific law firms. Now, this is by no means a comprehensive list of the only law firms that WNL law students ever work at, but it just gives you a sense, right, of where geographically and where specifically are students working, which firms are hiring WNL law students. So hopefully that will be of help to you, and expect that to be coming shortly. The final question that was sent in was regarding clerkships. Students have heard that WNL is a really strong producer of clerkships, that students have really great clerkship options here. And I wondered if we could talk just a little bit more about the clerkship committee that we have here at WNL, and interactions that students may have had to support them in trying to first learn about what these opportunities are. We might have people on this call who are not as familiar with what clerkships are or the benefits of them. And so how do we go first about educating WNL law students about these options, and working with the committee should somebody want to, move forward in that area?
Hannah, I'll definitely defer to you here in just a moment, since you're going to be pursuing that. But I will tell you that Andrea Hilton, who is our Associate Director of Professional Development here at the law school, who also is an alum of the law school along with Dean Jarrett, she just works so tirelessly with our students, with our faculty, to really help our students be prepared and advocate for those opportunities. Herself was a clerk coming out of law school at WNL. And so I think you get exposed to these opportunities, honestly, right away. So, Jasmine shared that she was a judicial intern her 1L summer. So again, you're getting that opportunity to be exposed, that research and writing experience, really understanding the state court level process, their appellate process, and really how that advocacy works. And then, as Hannah and Jasmine mentioned, that 3L externship, where they're going to court each week. They also have a companion course with a judge who is helping them prepare, really learning how to do that analysis. And then what happens is Ms. Hilton is the chair of our clerkship committee that is comprised of other WNL law faculty, that's some of the doctrinal faculty, perhaps some of the legal writing faculty, who they themselves have had judicial clerkships. And they really come together to offer really expert advice to our students who are going to be engaging in that process, looking to do that post-grad, either for 1 year or for 2 years potentially. And so she works with that team to cultivate the students' application materials, to make sure that the faculty are writing stellar letters of recommendation. And then through our relationships with our moot court teams, some of our trial advocacy teams, we do have judges that come in that are seeing the great advocacy skills that our students have. So then they're kind of planting those seeds. And then also what we have is a great track record of WNL law students who've been clerks in the past. And those folks are looking to cultivate and find students who also have that talent as well. So maybe Hannah, just briefly share a little bit about what your experience was and how Ms. Hilton supported you in that.
Yeah, so just generally first, for people who aren't familiar with what a clerkship is, essentially you are working in chambers for a judge and you get to observe court proceedings and you will help them write draft opinions. You'll do research and write memos for them if they have specific questions. You'll take notes during a trial. So you really just get to see kind of all the behind the scenes. And one of the big advantages of clerkships, which I touched on briefly earlier, is just building on those legal research and writing skills. And then having worked with a judge and really seeing kind of how their thought process works, how they make decisions, can be a really valuable skill to have. And depending on what you want to do after, that's a very marketable skill, especially if you want to go into a firm that practices in the same court that you clerked in. To be able to have that inside knowledge can be really, really helpful. So my experience specifically, you submit your application materials to the clerkship committee over 2L, like early in the spring semester, and the committee will send out, someone will review your resume, someone will review your writing sample, and then you tell them which professors are going to write your letters of recommendation. And then you kind of go from there, and you can meet with really any professor on the committee, or even a professor who's clerked that isn't on the committee, just to talk to them about their experiences, get like interview tips, things of that nature. And then I was applying for clerkships over the summer and into the fall, and the clerkship I ended up getting, I found through an alum who posted on our OCS job board. So I was actually able to, between my initial interview and my second interview, I was able to speak to an alum who clerked with that judge a couple years ago. And I was also able to talk to other alums that just graduated this past spring that are in their first year clerkship now, and just talk to them more about their experiences. And so OCS does a really good job of kind of bringing the opportunities with judges who are alums to the attention of students, but then also just being able to connect you with alums that are currently clerking or clerked pretty recently, so you can get maybe insight to a specific court, or just generally kind of how the clerkship process works, what their experience is like, what they do on a day-to-day basis.
That was a great synopsis. Thanks so much, Hannah. I really appreciate that. And thanks to all of you for this really interesting conversation about a really important topic, right? We want to make sure that students are able to get the jobs that they are excited about, and that they have the information that they need to seek out those opportunities. So I will put into the chat here, as I see no additional questions that have been submitted, additional ways to reach out to our office. If you have follow-up questions, or you'd like to speak about your specific circumstances or concerns, please contact us at LawADM, that's LAWADM at WLU.edu, and we will be glad to follow up with you. But for now, thank you so much to all of our panelists and to our attendees, and I hope that everyone has a great rest of their day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.